The summer sun blazed mercilessly over the rolling plains between the villages of Grunwald and Tannenberg. By 6 a.m., 39,000 warriors stood poised to decide the fate of Eastern Europe. King Władysław to Jagiełło of Poland, resplendent in gilded plate armor, adorned with the white eagle of his realm, raised his gauntleted hand. Across the field, Grandmaster Ulrich von Jungingen of the Teutonic Order adjusted his white mantle bearing the black cross, the symbol that had terrorized the Baltic for 2 centuries. This was no ordinary medieval clash. This was the culmination of decades of tension between Catholic Poland-Lithuania and the Germanic Teutonic Knights, who had carved out a crusader state in Prussia through conquest and religious zeal. The stakes couldn't be higher. Dominance over the lucrative Baltic trade routes, the future of Lithuania's recent Christianization, and the survival of the Teutonic Order itself. At 56, Jagiełło cut an imposing figure atop his destrier. His armor gleamed with gold inlay, featuring the white eagle of Poland emblazoned across his crimson surcoat. A jeweled crown circlet adorned his bassinet helmet, while his blue and gold banner bore the combined arms of Poland and Lithuania. Born Žalgiris in pagan Lithuania, he had converted to Christianity in 1386 to marry Queen Jadwiga of Poland, uniting 2 realms against their common enemy. Beside him rode his most trusted knights. Zindram of Maszkowice, the royal marshal whose azure banner bore 3 silver stars, and the legendary Zawisa the Black, whose obsidian armor and raven-crested helm made him instantly recognizable across Europe's battlefields. Jagiełło's cousin, Vytautas, commanded the Lithuanian wing. At 60, he remained a formidable warrior, his armor a blend of Eastern and Western styles, mail reinforced with steel plates, topped by a distinctly Eastern sallet helm decorated with horsehair plumes. His banner displayed the double-crossed columns of Gediminas in red and gold, while his personal guard wore Lithuanian colors of yellow and red. Despite his recent conversion, Vytautas's army retained distinctly pagan characteristics. Bear and wolf totems adorned standards, and many Lithuanian nobles still wore ancestral amber amulets alongside Christian crosses. The 8-year-old Ulrich embodied Teutonic military prowess. His pristine white mantle, emblazoned with the Order's black cross, covered Italian plate armor worth a king's ransom. His great helm bore the cross of Jerusalem, while his personal banner displayed the arms of the Order, quartered with his family's golden lions. Surrounding him, the Teutonic High Command presented a formidable sight. Komtur Kuno von Liechtenstein in silver plate, Marshal Friedrich von Wallenrod bearing the Order's black and white war banner, and dozens of knight brothers whose white surcoats gleamed like snow against their dark armor. The backbone of Jagiełło's army consisted of 8,000 Polish knights, the largest concentration of heavy cavalry in Eastern Europe. These weren't mere mounted soldiers but fully armored warriors representing Poland's most noble families. Each knight wore full plate armor worth more than a peasant's lifetime earnings. Italian-crafted breastplates, articulated arm guards, and distinctive Polish kettle helms with aventails of fine mail. Their war horses, bred from Andalusian and Frisian stock, stood 15 to 16 hns high, protected by steel chanfrons on their heads and quilted caparisons in their master's colors. The Polish knights carried 12-foot ash lances with steel points, complemented by long swords of German or Italian make. Their shields, called pavises, bore the heraldry of ancient families: the raven of the Corwin clan, the Rawicz wild boar, the Junosa griffins. Polish infantry numbered 6,000, including crossbowmen from Kraków, armed with steel-prod arbalests, spearmen wielding 8-foot pikes, and urban militias from Poznan and Warsaw carrying halberds and warhammers. Their padded jacks bore city colors, while their steel caps and mail coifs provided basic protection. Supporting them were 4,000 foreign allies, Czech mercenaries in brigandines, Hungarian light cavalry, and most notably, a contingent of Moldavian boyars whose colorful kaftans and curved sabers added an exotic element to the Christian host. Vytautas commanded a more diverse force reflecting Lithuania's recent expansion. His 5,000 Lithuanian cavalry favored mobility over armor, wearing mail hauberks reinforced with steel plates, complemented by Eastern-style helmets, spangen helms, and early sallets decorated with horsehair plumes in clan colors. Their weapons reflected this Eastern influence. Shorter, more maneuverable lances, curved sabers alongside straight swords, and composite bows of horn and sinew. Lithuanian nobles rode smaller, faster horses capable of the hit-and-run tactics that had made them masters of the Baltic plains. Most controversial were Vytautas's 3,000 Tatar allies, Muslim horsemen whose presence scandalized Western Christendom. These warriors from the Golden Horde wore layered leather armor reinforced with iron plates, conical helmets with mail aventails, and carried recurved bows capable of piercing mail at 200 yards. Their curved shamshirs and small round shields completed their armament. The remaining 3,000 consisted of Ruthenian boyars, Smolensk cavalry, and Lithuanian infantry, armed with spears, axes, and crossbows. The Teutonic army represented the pinnacle of Western military technology. At its core stood 2,500 knight brothers and half-brothers of the order, each a professional warrior trained from childhood. Their armor was uniformly magnificent. Italian plate imported through Venice, German mail of the finest quality, and the distinctive white mantles that struck fear across the Baltic. The Order's knights wielded weapons befitting their status. Damascus steel swords, Milanese plate armor, and Spanish destriers worth fortunes. Their great helms bore crosses, family crests, and religious inscriptions, while their surcoats displayed not only the Order's cross, but their personal heraldry. Supporting them were 5,000 guest crusaders from across Europe, a true international force. French nobles wore the latest Milanese armor and carried the curved falchions popular in Western Europe. English knights brought longbows and the tactical innovations of Crécy and Poitiers. Swiss mercenaries wielded their feared halberds, while Bohemian cavalry added crossbows and early firearms to the mix. The Teutonic infantry, numbering 15,000, represented the most disciplined foot soldiers in northern Europe. German spearmen from the Rhineland carried 10-foot pikes and wore padded gambesons reinforced with iron strips. Genoese crossbowmen, veterans of Italian wars, operated steel-prod arbalests with pavise shields. Most innovatively, the Teutons deployed primitive bombards, bronze cannons capable of hurling stone balls to shatter enemy formations. Supporting this force were 4,500 auxiliary troops, Prussian militias, Livonian light cavalry, and Danish mercenaries, whose varied equipment reflected the Order's vast territorial reach. As darkness fell on the 14th of July, the Teutonic camp resembled a fortress of white pavilions, arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Grand Master Ulrich's tent, marked by banners bearing the Black Cross, hosted the final war council. By candlelight, maps drawn on parchment showed the planned disposition. Heavy cavalry in the center, guest crusaders on the flanks, infantry and artillery in reserve. The Grand Master, still wearing his mail hauberk under a silk surcoat, addressed his commanders in Latin, the lingua franca of crusading warfare. Tomorrow we face not just Poles and Lithuanians, but pagans and infidels who would corrupt our holy land of Prussia. His words echoed the papal bulls that had legitimized 2 centuries of Baltic conquest. Throughout the camp, knight brothers knelt in prayer before portable altars. They recited the Veni Creator Spiritus and received communion from Teutonic chaplains. Squires busied themselves with final preparations, sharpening swords on whetstones, adjusting armor straps, and feeding the precious war horses. 3 miles away, the Allied camp buzzed with different energy. Polish knights gathered around campfires, sharing wine from their estates while discussing tactics in their native tongue. Many wore religious medallions blessed by the Archbishop of Gniezno, while others carried relics from Polish saints. King Jagiełło's royal pavilion, decorated with the White Eagle banner, hosted a more diverse gathering. Nobles spoke in Polish, Lithuanian, Latin, and even Tatar as they coordinated the next day's battle plan. The king himself, wearing a simple blue tunic over his mail, consulted with Zawisza the Black about cavalry charges, while Lithuanian boyars discussed their feigned retreat tactics. Vytautas's Lithuanian section maintained different customs. While officially Christian, many warriors still performed ancestral rituals, blessing weapons with mead, invoking forest spirits, and wearing amber talismans alongside Christian crosses. Tatar allies faced east for their evening prayers, their chanted Arabic creating an exotic counterpoint to Latin hymns. The battlefield stretched across rolling countryside between Lake Lubień and the Masurian forests. Recent rains had softened the ground, while July heat promised to turn armor into ovens. The Teutons occupied slightly higher ground, their white banners visible against the morning sky. Two small villages marked the battlefield's extremes, Grunwald to the southwest, Tannenberg to the northeast. Between them lay 3 miles of meadows, punctuated by small copses and marshy depressions that would channel cavalry charges. Jagiełło arranged his forces in the traditional medieval formation. His 8,000 Polish knights formed the right wing, their colorful banners creating a rainbow of heraldry: the white eagle of Poland, the red griffin of Pomerania, the blue lion of Galicia. Each contingent flew the banner of its voivode, creating a forest of silk and linen that snapped in the morning breeze. The king positioned himself with the reserve, wearing his golden crown openly, a calculated display of royal authority. His personal guard of 200 knights surrounded the royal banner, their armor polished to mirror brightness. Vytautas commanded the left wing with his 11,000 Lithuanians and allies. The Lithuanian cavalry arranged themselves in traditional wedge formations, their horsehair standards and clan totems creating a distinctly eastern appearance. Behind them, Tatar light cavalry waited in loose formation, their composite bows strung and ready. Grandmaster Ulrich arranged his forces with Germanic precision. The 2,500 knight brothers formed the center, their white mantles and black crosses creating an intimidating wall of Christian militancy. The Grand Master's personal banner, a white field bearing the black cross quartered with golden lions, flew above this elite formation. On the Teutonic left, 2,500 guest crusaders from France, England, and Bohemia deployed in national contingents. French nobles wore the latest Milanese plate and flew banners bearing fleur-de-lis, while English knights displayed the 3 lions and carried their feared longbows. The Teutonic right wing consisted of 3,000 German and Swiss mercenaries, their discipline evident in their perfect alignment. Behind the entire army, 15,000 infantry waited in reserve, Genoese crossbowmen with their distinctive pavese shields, German spearmen in gleaming mail, and the revolutionary bombards' bronze cannons that represented medieval warfare's cutting edge. As church bells in distant Marienburg chimed the hour, Vytautas raised his glaive, a signal that sent 8,000 Lithuanian and Tatar horsemen surging forward like a breaking dam. Their battle cry, "Vytautas, Lithuania," echoed across the field as they thundered toward the Teutonic right wing. The Lithuanian charge was poetry in motion. Light cavalry in the vanguard loosed clouds of arrows from composite bows, their steel points glinting like deadly rain. Behind them, heavier Lithuanian nobles with 8-foot lances targeted the gaps in the Teutonic line. The ground shook under thousands of hooves as horse and rider moved as one entity. Vytautas himself, magnificent in gold inlaid mail and a helm crested with white eagle feathers, led the central wedge. His personal guard, 100 Lithuanian nobles, whose families had ruled the forest since pagan times, surrounded their duke in a formation that combined eastern mobility with western shock tactics. The German and Swiss mercenaries facing this onslaught demonstrated why they commanded premium wages. Their front rank, armed with 10-foot pikes, created a bristling hedgehog of steel points. Behind them, Genoese crossbowmen loosed volleys from their steel-prod arbalests, each bolt capable of piercing mail at 150 yards. Comte Heinrich von Plauen, commanding the Teutonic right, remained calm amid the chaos. His white surcoat, emblazoned with the Order's cross, and his personal arms, 3 red hearts on silver, was soon splattered with mud as his destrier wheeled among his men, shouting orders in German and Latin. The collision was catastrophic. Lithuanian horses, bred for speed rather than weight, crashed into the pike wall with sickening impact. Steel points punched through horseflesh and rider alike, while crossbow bolts found gaps in Lithuanian mail. The sound, a mixture of screaming horses, clashing metal, and dying men, could be heard for miles. What happened next would be debated by historians for centuries. The Lithuanian cavalry, apparently bloodied and broken, began streaming backward toward their own lines. Tatar horse archers wheeled away, loosing Parthian shots as they fled. Vytautas himself, his golden surcoat torn and bloodied, seemed to join the rout. "God wills it, forward!" roared the Teutonic commanders as they saw their enemies flee. The disciplined pike wall dissolved as German mercenaries and guest crusaders pursued the defeated Lithuanians. French knights spurred their destriers forward, eager for glory and ransom money. Even some knight brothers broke formation, their white mantles streaming behind them as they chased the retreating pagans. While Vytautas's wing retreated, the battle's decisive moment approached. King Jagiełło, resplendent in his gilded armor and royal crown, raised his sword, the signal for 8,000 Polish knights to charge the Teutonic center. The Polish assault was magnificent and terrible. Each knight represented centuries of martial tradition, families who had fought Mongols, Hungarians, and Germans since the 13th century. Their banners told the story of Polish nobility, the Raven of Corwin, the Horseshoe of Pobog, the Rose of Rozik. As they charged, their lances lowered in perfect unison, creating a forest of steel points aimed at Teutonic hearts. Grandmaster Ulrich, recognizing the climactic moment, spurred his own destrier forward. His 2,500 knight brothers responded with disciplined fury, their white mantles creating a wall of religious militancy. The black cross on their surcoats seemed to absorb sunlight as they thundered toward the Polish eagles. When 16,000 heavy cavalry meet at full charge, the result defies description. Lances shattered like twigs, sending splinters 20 feet in every direction. Horses collided breast to breast, their combined weight and speed creating impacts that could be felt through the ground. Knights in 60-pound suits of armor were lifted bodily from their saddles and hurled backward. Władysław the Black, Poland's most famous knight, found himself facing Komtur Kuno von Liechtenstein in single combat. Władysław's raven-black armor, made by Milanese smiths and decorated with silver inlay, contrasted sharply with Kuno's pristine white mantle. Their swords, both masterworks of German steel, rang like bells as they exchanged blows that would have felled lesser men. The young Duke Casimir of Słupsk, wearing his family's blue and gold colors, carved through Teutonic ranks with a war hammer that crushed helmets like eggshells. His personal banner-bearer, struck down by a Teutonic crossbow bolt, died clutching the ducal standard, ensuring the blue griffin of Pomerania continued flying above the melee. As the cavalry battle raged, individual acts of heroism emerged from the chaos. Zindram of Maszkowice, the royal marshal, found his path blocked by 3 Teutonic knight brothers. His azure banner with silver stars had been torn by a Teutonic blade, but he continued fighting with a broken lance, using the splintered shaft like a club. King Jagiełło himself faced mortal danger when a group of Bohemian crusaders nearly surrounded him. His golden crown, knocked askew by a glancing blow, caught the sunlight as he fought desperately. Only the timely arrival of his household guard, 100 knights sworn to die before their king, saved the Polish monarch from capture or death. The Teutonic knights fought with religious fervor. Brother Gunther von Hohenstein, wielding a two-handed sword that few men could lift, cut down 4 Polish knights before falling to a warhammer that caved in his great helm. His white surcoat, soaked with blood, bore witness to the order's fanatical courage. The masterstroke. Vytautas returns. 11 a.m. The trap springs. Just as the Teutonic center began gaining ground against the hard-pressed Poles, a thunderclap of hoofbeats announced Vytautas's return. The Lithuanian retreat had been a masterpiece of deception, drawing the Teutonic right wing into pursuit while the main Lithuanian force regrouped in the forests. Now Vytautas emerged from the woods with 6,000 fresh cavalry, having left the pursuing Germans trapped in marshy ground. His golden surcoat, cleaned and gleaming, bore no trace of his earlier defeat. The columns of Gediminas on his banner seemed to dance in the wind as Lithuanian war cries shattered the air. The psychological impact was devastating. Teutonic troops who thought victory was assured suddenly faced a fresh enemy on their exposed flank. Swiss mercenaries, still scattered from their pursuit, tried desperately to reform their pike squares. Genoese crossbowmen found themselves outflanked by Tatar horse archers who materialized from behind every copse and rise. Heinrich von Plauen, the capable Komtur commanding the Teutonic right, realized immediately that his wing was doomed. His white banner with the Order's cross still flew proudly, but his forces were scattered across 3 miles of countryside. He managed to rally 500 men around his personal standard, forming a defensive square that held for 20 precious minutes. The end came when Vytautas himself, led a wedge of Lithuanian nobles directly at Plowin's position. The Grand Duke's glaive, its steel point bright with enemy blood, punched through Plowin's mail at the shoulder joint. The Teutonic commander fell, his white mantle slowly turning red as Lithuanian cavalry swept over his final position. With his right wing collapsing and Polish pressure mounting at the center, Grandmaster Ulrich von Jungingen made the decision that would cost him everything. Gathering his 300-strong household guard, the elite of the elite, men who had served the order for decades, he prepared for one final charge. The Grandmaster's appearance was magnificent even in defeat. His white mantle, though torn and blood-stained, still bore the black cross prominently. His great helm, decorated with the Cross of Jerusalem, caught the noon sun as he raised his sword. Around him, the banners of the Order's highest officials created a final display of Teutonic power. The Marshal's standard, the Comtour's personal arms, the ancient battle flag that had flown over 2 centuries of conquest. For Christ and the Order, Ulrich's voice carried across the battlefield as he spurred his destrier forward. His household guard responded with a roar that seemed to shake the earth itself. These were men who had chosen death before dishonor, and they rode toward the Polish center with the fatalistic courage of true believers. Ulrich's charge struck the Polish line like a thunderbolt. His household guard, fighting with the desperation of cornered wolves, carved a bloody path through 2 ranks of Polish knights. For a moment, it seemed the Grand Master might reach King Jagiełło himself. But the Polish response was immediate and overwhelming. Żałgisza the Black, his raven-colored armor gleaming with enemy blood, wheeled his destrier to intercept the Grand Master. Behind him, 200 Polish nobles closed ranks, their banners the eagle, the griffin, the raven, forming a wall of heraldic defiance. The duel between Ulrich and Żałgisza lasted only seconds, but would be remembered for centuries. The Grand Master's sword, a masterpiece of German steel, rang against Żałgisza's Italian blade in a shower of sparks. Then Władysław Oleśnica, approaching from Ulrich's blind side, drove his lance through a gap in the Grand Master's armor. Ulrich von Jungingen, 48th Grand Master of the Teutonic Order, fell from his saddle with a sound like thunder. His white mantle, stained with mud and blood, settled over him like a shroud. Around his body, his household guard fought and died, their sacrifice buying their master a warrior's death. With their Grand Master dead and their banners trampled, Teutonic resistance crumbled like a dam bursting. The white mantles that had terrorized the Baltic for 2 centuries became targets for Polish and Lithuanian fury. Knights who had ruled Prussia like princes found themselves cut down by men they had oppressed for generations. The retreat became a rout as surviving Teutons fled toward their camp. But Jagiełło had positioned 2,000 fresh Polish knights in reserve specifically for this moment. Led by Duke Świętopełk of Pomerania, these warriors swept down on the fleeing Germans like wolves on sheep. The Teutonic infantry, waiting in reserve, tried to form defensive squares, but without cavalry support, they were helpless against the Allied charge. Lithuanian light cavalry circled them like hunting birds, loosing arrows into the packed formations while Polish knights charged again and again. The slaughter continued for miles. Teutonic knights, burdened by armor that had protected them in formation, became liabilities in flight. Polish and Lithuanian cavalry, fighting on familiar terrain, knew every path and ford. They harried the fleeing Germans into marshes and forests where heavy cavalry could not maneuver. Marshal Friedrich von Wallenrod, attempting to rally the Order's reserves, found himself surrounded near Lake Lubień. His banner, the black and white war standard of the Order, fell into Lithuanian hands as Tatar archers riddled his formation with arrows. The marshal himself, struck by 3 arrows but still fighting, finally fell when a Lithuanian glaive opened his throat. By evening, the roads to Marienburg were littered with white mantles. Knights who had seemed invincible that morning lay dead in muddy fields, their proud heraldry trampled by peasant feet. The military elite of a nation had been destroyed in 6 hours. As the sun set on the 15th of July, 1410, scribes began the grim task of counting the dead. The Teutonic Order had suffered one of medieval Europe's most complete defeats. Grand Master Ulrich von Jungingen, dead. Marshal Friedrich von Wallenrod, dead. Comtour Heinrich von Plowin, dead. Komtur Kuno von Liechtenstein, dead. 300 knight brothers and half-brothers, dead. 2,200 guest crusaders, dead or captured. 8,000 infantry and militia, dead, wounded, or scattered. The Order's treasury, accumulated over 2 centuries of conquest, fell into Polish hands. More devastating still, the sacred banners that had blessed Teutonic armies since their arrival in Prussia now decorated Allied tents. The great war banner of the Order, embroidered with gold thread and blessed by 3 popes, became Jagiełło's personal trophy. The victors had paid a price, but far lighter than their enemies. 500 Polish knights killed, including several notable lords. 1,200 Lithuanian cavalry casualties. 800 infantry and allied losses. Władysław the Black, though wounded, survived to become even more legendary. Young Duke Casimir of Słupsk earned his spurs in the battle's bloodiest fighting. King Jagiełło himself bore only minor wounds, testament to his personal guard's effectiveness and his own considerable skill. 3 days after Grunwald, the Allied army stood before Marienburg, the Teutonic Order's mighty capital. The fortress, built of red brick and considered impregnable, loomed over the Nogat River like a monument to German power. But with most of the Order's military strength dead on Grunwald's fields, its walls sheltered only old men, clerks, and a handful of surviving knights. King Jagiełło, wearing a clean surcoat over polished armor, demanded surrender. The terms were generous, too generous, his nobles argued. But the Polish king, ever mindful of European opinion, chose mercy over vengeance. The Order would survive, but as a shadow of its former power. Grunwald's effects rippled across medieval Europe like an earthquake. The Teutonic Order, once among Christendom's most powerful institutions, began its terminal decline. Their Prussian territories gradually slipped away, eventually becoming the Duchy of Prussia under Polish suzerainty. Poland-Lithuania emerged as Eastern Europe's dominant power. The union of Jagiełło and Vytautas, sealed in blood at Grunwald, created a realm stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea. For 2 centuries, this Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth would dominate Central European politics. On the 15th of July, 1,410, 39,000 men fought for 6 hours in obscure villages between forests and lakes. When the sun set, medieval Europe's balance of power had shifted forever. The white mantles with black crosses, symbols of Germanic expansion eastward, lay trampled in Prussian mud. In their place rose the white eagle of Poland and the red columns of Lithuania. The Battle of Grunwald proved that no military order, however disciplined, could stand against the combined might of aroused nations. Polish knights, fighting for their homeland, and Lithuanian cavalrymen, defending their newly Christian realm, had achieved what many thought impossible, the complete destruction of the Teutonic war machine. Today, visitors to the battlefield can still walk the ground where these medieval warriors clashed. Monuments mark where the Grand Master fell, where Władysław the Black earned immortal fame, and where Vytautas proved that sometimes the best victory is the one that appears to be a defeat. The names inscribed on these stones, Polish, Lithuanian, German, remind us that courage and honor transcend nationality, even as they acknowledge that on that July day in 1410, the forces of Poland-Lithuania wrote one of military history's most decisive chapters. The Battle of Grunwald stands as testament to medieval warfare's brutal magnificence. 39,000 warriors in armor worth kingdoms, fighting with weapons that were works of art, led by kings and grand masters whose personal glory was inseparable from their nation's fate. In 6 hours of combat, they decided the future of Eastern Europe and created legends that echo still across the centuries.